Good evening. Welcome back into Infinity. I'm Rob Finity. Hope you have your head held a little bit higher today because you were right. And what we witnessed last night as a country was many things. Donald Trump won more than 300 electoral votes and the popular vote, which is something we haven't seen a Republican do in 20 years. Republicans also won the House and the Senate, meaning Donald Trump has got a mandate, a true mandate. And if you're a Kamala supporter, I'm sorry, but you are just drastically out of touch with the rest of America right now. That is just a fact. The Democratic Party clearly does not get the American people anymore. And I've said this for weeks. What we've seen over the last 4 years is not normal. It's been the Chinese water torture of odd and awful, drip, drip, drip. And yesterday, the American people said it
back and gain a check on the Trump administration's power. We could get an update on that this evening. Anchors Kaylin Collins and Abby Phillip are covering every angle of the Trump victory and the Harris defeat.
Candidates. But it was a choice between keeping the American system of government or trading it in for a strongman authoritarian system instead. Then the decisive result of this election gives us not just an answer to the question as to what Americans want to do along those lines, it also gives us a really big to-do list as Americans. If you are an American citizen who does not want to ashcan...
Chance to talk about the victory, almost a red wave. You could call it, this is...
All right, so President Grover Cleveland was the only American president to lose the presidency and then win it back 4 years later. Donald Trump just did the same thing. And last night I heard someone compare Trump's win to Richard Nixon winning in 1968 after losing to John F. Kennedy.
Oh, I love the Who.
Yeah. And the country needed Donald Trump back in office because the Democrats had gone crazy. Let's think about how crazy they had gone. They were flying Venezuelans into the country and then just putting them in cities. Now, when they started doing that, I started to think they are going to lose. They started making genders up and started putting windmills all over our beaches. They started printing money, giving it to Detroit. They'd opened up factories in Mexico to build these stupid cars nobody wanted. They started emptying prisons. So you're looking at this stuff and they're going crazy. And then they're telling everybody everything's great. And Joe Biden's fine. Joe Biden's falling down. He can't remember where he is. And
say we should keep that system, which means time to fight for it. And yes, Americans did fight for it by working on this election, by trying to get the candidate elected who was both the Democrat and the small d Democrat. She didn't win. The strongman candidate won instead. But now history doesn't end. Time doesn't stop. Now we have the benefit of knowing, how this has gone in every other country that has been through a democracy to authoritarian transition.
Likely not possible, but there are a lot of people who are seeking rewards and pitching themselves right now to Donald Trump and Susie Wiles and those in his inner circle trying to get traction on a potential administration post.
Yeah, and with the Senate makeup how it is now.
They tried to bankrupt him, discredit him. They went after his family. They tried to take him off the ballot in several states. They tried to put him in jail. They raided his homes. They tried to kill him. They called him a racist, a fascist, a Nazi, all of that garbage. And yet the result will go down as one of the greatest political backfires
to be president. And they tried to prove it over and over again by impeaching him and then indicting him and then convicting him. And by the way, did you notice in the last month, no Democrat has been saying, and he's been guilty. He was found guilty of 34 felony counts. They knew that the American people didn't buy it. So in spite of all the things they threw at him, he won the popular vote, the electoral vote.
You will go down as a joke. And I hate to give Democrats
or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States. And loyalty to our conscience and to our God.
Abby, tell us more about the vice president's message and what comes next.
Yeah, Jake, this was a year of incredibly
a thorn in the side to anyone who now intends to try to turn this country into some tin pot tyranny. What they want least of all is to realize that half the country went to bed sad tonight, but then woke up tomorrow fired up.
Because they didn't do their job. Forget about the fact that we're a sovereign nation, but when you open the doors, at least check out who they were. And it was over and over again, crimes being committed, letting them out of jail. And don't underestimate COVID. There was a COVID carryover in this vote. None of us forget what it was like when you couldn't go to church and you had to be 6 feet apart, and we couldn't talk about it because they got rid of our First Amendment rights. And it went on and on. And this was an America that said, we don't buy into it. I'm not into this privileged stuff. All my friends are black and Hispanic, and my family is this color and that color. We don't see race the way they did. And they voted for that man.
Big time. In 2020, Biden said, I'm the normal candidate, like return to normal. And in a way, I feel like Donald Trump did that this time because the left had gone so far left. He said we could return to some common sense policies here. And he won so big in the Electoral College and the popular vote that now the Democrats don't know what to complain about.
It's a good point. You know, they went from a Diddy party to a pity party.
Ooh.
And you're absolutely right. What's great about last night is that it was definitive. Mm-hmm. No matter who wins, be happy that it was kind of resolute and it was quick. There's really no gray area here, where either side can call out one thing or another.
As these guys on the other side inevitably start picking off individual journalists, individual publishers, individual news organizations to try ultimately to turn us all into some American accented
tolerated race. I was struck by, as she also said, I know many people feel like we're entering a dark time. I hope that's not the case. She was as optimistic as possible, but also pretty real. And the reality is she has 75 more days to be serving in the White House here behind us. And she is the vice president. I'm told she's going to go about her day job, but also she's going to be focusing on her future. We do not know what that is, but as of now, she's as much the leader of this Democratic Party as anyone. So I think she exits this race with her head held fairly high as we begin sort of deciphering what happened. It's not all on her.
Of David Muir and Nora O'Donnell, of Joy Reid and Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, last night confirmed what I've been feeling for a long time. We are not fringe. They are fringe. They are completely out of touch with you, the American people, and now, over the next 4 years, the power of independent media, what you're watching right now, will only continue to grow. And the power of the legacy media will never be the same. Think about it like this. If every day for 3 months the media told you that lima beans were great, if every newspaper, if every website, every blog, every local newscast told you that lima beans were the best, eventually you'd probably start to think that lima beans were pretty good, right?
Donald Trump is picking up
of the judiciary to head that off. We're going to need the whole country to recognize that risk in advance. We're going to need every lawyer in the country to recognize it as their calling to fight it. We're going to need to call it what it is when it inevitably happens, and we're going to have to actively resist it. And then there's civil society. Is there a more boring term in the world that doesn't include the word committee or budget? No, there isn't. Civil society, though, is kind of where the rest of us are at, right? Civil society is one of the things that I think of as soft food for authoritarians. They often don't even have to bite that hard.
Then you look at their negative behavior, go, see, they are racist. No, we just don't like you anymore. Mm-hmm. So I would love to see some self-reflection. I do a lot, as you know, I do a lot.
Start packing. And if you're here illegally, if you're an illegal alien, go home. It's over. To the millions that have crossed the border under Joe and Kamala, the party's over. Good riddance. Let the deportations begin. The war in Ukraine, also going to come to an end, because that's exactly what the American people want. We know that because the American people just told us so yesterday. They voted for this, and as we know well, elections have consequences. Donald Trump could also end up with 52 or 53 seats in the Senate, which would be another mandate, and that means that he gets whatever cabinet he wants. Elon Musk, confirmed. RFK Jr., confirmed. Tulsi Gabbard, confirmed. So expect the best and the brightest. Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals in the White House in January. That's a good thing for all of us. Goodbye, Rachel Levine. Goodbye, Karine Jean-Pierre. See you later, Mayor Pete, Antony Blinken, Merrick Garland, Alejandro Mayorkas. Goodbye. We now live in a country where Chuck Schumer is irrelevant. How about that? Donald Trump increased his vote total in 2,300 counties nationwide. We've got 3,000. Almost every county in America, more people voted for Donald Trump than ever before. So hold your head high today. Take a deep breath. What happened last night was miraculous in so many ways, and one thing is official. It is morning once again in America, and the end of our long national nightmare officially happens on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2020.
That what's her future and that she is the leader of the Democratic Party. She's not the leader of the Democratic Party. Yeah. My experience in doing this for a long time is parties don't like losers. They particularly don't like a loser that is letting Donald Trump back into the White House. There have been many more beloved losers in either party. I think of somebody like Walter Mondale, who had a lot more
people making the choice they did in this election is not just the end, right? It's not just, oh, it's over. It means we're now entering into a contest. It will now be an effort on his side to put that into practice, right? To put strongman authoritarian government into practice.
What was the rationale for pulling back a lot of Trump's executive actions and not doing anything? And then on personal
local diner, and it's like $18.95 for a stack of pancakes. I'm like, I don't know how people do that. Like, I really think inflation had gotten so out of control. And, we all feel it. We all see it. You're looking at grocery prices that had gone through the roof, egg prices that had gone through the roof, car insurance that had gone through the roof. And I'm telling you, this stuff matters to people. It matters more than some of these other fringe issues. And I think they were really misguided. I mean, they really dug in, for example, on the transgender sports issue. That's not a home run in the rest of America. But things like inflation, the threat of war, border challenges, these are the issues that people care about. And Rob, he just owned those. Donald Trump has real conviction on these things, and he's been talking about them for decades. I don't think you could have a substantive conversation with Kamala Harris about tariffs, about inflation, about GDP, about employment. I don't think that she really got these things, if you would. She was a great attack dog, right? She knew how to attack, but she didn't know how to have a substantive conversation. America saw through it. I'm impressed that Americans saw through all
down there. All right, up next. What took so long? Kamala Harris under fire for delaying her concession speech.
Working all weekend, I'm tired and I don't want to sleep. I want to have fun. It's time for a good time.
Pirate energy. Because it is one thing to be a defender of the realm. It is another thing to be in opposition. And opposition can be a lot of things. It can be dangerous. It can also be fun. It would have been nice to win the election. Didn't. Okay. Time to save the country.
And no pressure at all. None at all. Once you're hydrated, you need to connect with the fact that a defining feature of Trump 2.0 is the promise to
Streaming now on Fox Nation. Don't buy
this. I think in some ways the Democrats feel really burned. Some of them are now like, wait a second, maybe we should have kept Joe after all. I don't think he would have done it for them either. I think that the moral of the story is, you know what? You need good candidates. And if you're going to go
midterm, a very successful midterm, and thrown the party open to a full nomination process. First of all, I don't think it would have been Kamala Harris. It would have been somebody else. And could they have beaten Donald Trump? We'll never know that, but I think that's the only...
Da mucha ansiedad pensar en lo que esto significará por la comunidad inmigrante, siendo hija de papás inmigrantes y indocumentadas. También me da mucha ansiedad.
Ahorita mismo no sé qué sentir. Creo que solo me da mucho miedo, como no solo por mi familia, pero todas las familias como en mi comunidad.
Now, having heard that, it must be said that Donald Trump made major gains with Latino voters, particularly Latino male voters, last night. And joining me now from Phoenix to unpack all of that is MSNBC contributor Paula Ramos. She is the author of Defector.
Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is now available in a tasty chewable that works in a day.
more and more right as I get older? Is that what's going on? Because I always considered myself pretty level-headed. But they've gone so far left, Rob. They're just off the reservation. They're way out in left field that now everybody in America is coming back to their senses and saying, we need, I mean, think about it, defund the police, really. I mean, you need some law and order. There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah, I moved here. I live in Connecticut. I'm in Midtown, but I moved here from Florida. And I put that in there because I feel that way, you know, and for the last...
Back 24 hours later, it actually bends like it should have when it was first installed. Take my word for it, it does work.
Biden breaks his silence, responding to the election results before...
It's real now, not January 20th, because this is the moment when Renata and Regina, those two young girls that you saw, right now, as we're speaking, her parents are actively thinking about self-deporting to Mexico. Fidel, the young Latino man that you saw, his mom.
On the skin, it works like a dream. Why didn't someone think of this sooner?
Yeah, dude, that doesn't look good. I know what to do. I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, I can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply.
And their kids feel like they can't say what they need to say in school, so nobody's learning them. Oh, this is the same guy that 24 hours ago was just telling us that if you were aligned with Trump, you were effectively a Nazi, a racist, you name it, right? Some really terrible, terrible labels that people can't recover from. So I don't know. I guess it's a kind of a Machiavellian move, perhaps, on his part. But I do think that you're going to start to see this shift back to the center. Hillary Clinton warned them ages ago, you know, don't double down on some of these issues where you're going on some of these cultural issues. They're not going to fly. And I think they just got proof none of it flies. You know what? At the end of the day, you need accountability. Yeah. It's not all about DEI and let's put a woman who checks a bunch of boxes in the seat and hope that Hollywood can rush her into the Oval Office. It's about putting people that have substance and that have the sort of leadership skills to get stuff done. That's what Americans want.
They want it. Donald Trump, I have a feeling, is going to start delivering it. Some of these things, Trish, could be resolved before Election Day. There's a chance that the war in Ukraine is resolved before Election Day. There's a chance the war in Gaza is resolved before Election Day because our adversaries know that Donald Trump is playing for keeps. And it all starts officially on January the 20th. Trish Regan, great to see you. Thanks so much for being with me.
The fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. While I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign. On the campaign, I would often say, when we fight, we win. But here's the thing. Sometimes the fight takes a while. That doesn't mean we won't win. Don't you ever listen when anyone tells you something is impossible because it has never been done before.
Harris isn't the only one shouldering the brunt of the blame. Folks are pointing the finger at President Biden, which is dangerous, for his Veeps bruising a loss.
Has the conversation begun yet about Joe?
Breaking news involving Donald Trump's unprecedented criminal conviction. CNN's Paul Reed is here with details. What are you learning, Paul?
So, Anderson, in speaking with sources, I'm told that Trump's legal team is going to try to get his upcoming sentencing in New York following his conviction on 34 counts of fraud. They're going to try to get that canceled. Historically, they have just tried to get things delayed or pushed back. But here, I'm told they are going to argue to the court that as president-elect, Trump is entitled to the same protections as a sitting president and should be protected from state actors, including prosecutors. Now, the judge here, Judge Juan Merchan, has given himself a November 12th deadline to decide if this conviction should be tossed because of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling this past summer. Now, if he tosses the conviction, there won't be a sentencing, but I am told the Trump team here, they are going to continue to fight to make sure this is not just delayed, but that this never happens.
All right. Paul Reed, thanks very much. Kristen Holmes has a report from West Palm Beach. Kristen, what are you hearing about the second term and the transition that's already underway?
Well, Donald Trump has made a series of promises for the last 2 years, and some of them people are wondering how exactly he's going to get done. President-elect Donald Trump already has a lengthy to-do list.
Promises made, promises kept. We're going to keep our promises.
Promises he made during his campaign, starting with immigration.
We've got to have the largest mass deportation effort in history, and we're going to Going forward, the future children of illegal aliens will not receive automatic U.S. citizenship.
Vowing to immediately go after millions of undocumented immigrants, calling for a ban on sanctuary cities, a death penalty for human traffickers, and to reinstate his travel ban on people entering the U.S. from predominantly Muslim countries.
I will send Congress a bill to ban sanctuary cities in the first day that I become president. I will immediately restore and expand the Trump travel ban on entry from tariff-plagued countries.
On the economy,
Tariffs are the greatest thing ever invented.
Trump has promised massive tariffs on foreign goods, despite economists saying American consumers are likely to pay the price, as well as ending and cutting specific taxes.
My plan will massively cut taxes for workers and small businesses, and we will have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors.
Trump has claimed he could end the conflict in the Middle East and the Russia-Ukraine war immediately.
We're going to take care of Israel, and they know that. I will stop the chaos in the Middle East, and I will prevent World War III from happening. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled.
While not offering any explanation of how. He's made commitments on changing the education system.
On day one, I will sign an executive order banning schools from promoting critical race theory or transgender insanity. And I'm going to close the Department of Education and move education back to the states.
Trump has also promised to go after his perceived political enemies.
For those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family.
Including firing special counsel Jack Smith.
I would fire him within 2 seconds.
Trump has also made promises to those prosecuted for their actions on January 6th.
Will you pardon the January 6th rioters who were convicted of federal offenses?
I am inclined to pardon many of them. I can't say for every single one because a couple of them probably they got out of control.
And while unlike some other Republicans, Trump has stated he doesn't want a national abortion ban.
No, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
His administration could implement new restrictions without passing a federal law. And right now, Anderson, what's going on is that the transition, the wheels are already in motion. The people who would put in these laws or these kind of policies
couldn't bring themselves to admit it, or they were too timid to admit it. But everybody could see Trump is sweeping this thing.
Yeah, Governor,
you guys
thank you.
were the
By the way,
first to be there, and I
sorry to cut you off.
congratulate you for that.
Governor, thank you so much for saying that. It was, the team was fantastic last night. We called Georgia, we called North Carolina, and obviously I'm a la carte watching everybody else. And everyone was afraid to make the call. And then we called Pennsylvania, and then we called Wisconsin. And Donald Trump's president, and all of a sudden now I've got the stopwatch out, and it's like 45 minutes before the other networks made the call, which is a problem. That is a problem. We did exactly what you're supposed to do, wrap up election night on election night, and we tried to deliver that to our audience last night.
And you know what? You didn't get burned. Everything that you said was happening, it happened. So I think that's big. But here's what my takeaway of all of last night. Number one, it proved that no matter how many different ways you try to destroy Donald Trump, he just keeps bouncing back. He's the most resilient person I've ever seen in or out of politics or any other profession. That's exactly who America needs to lead this country right now. So he's perfect for the role. But the other thing we saw was a total realignment of our political landscape. The old Republican Party that used to pride themselves on having nice cocktail parties in Georgetown, hanging out with the swells, you know what? Those days are gone. Nobody cares about them.
So Kamala, during that time, should have been the understudy to the president. She should have been in all the meetings. She had access to all the best experts, to all the files, to all the documents. She should have been on her game, ready to take it to the top. But you know what? She was lazy. She was lazy. She was angry. She was toxic. 94% of her staff quit. They said she belittled them, and she was lazy. She didn't study enough. So let's get right to the bottom of it. It's her fault that she didn't win. It's her fault that she hid Biden or allowed him to hide for all that time, because maybe she could have come out earlier and not just had 100 days to campaign. And for those people who say she had 100 days to campaign and that's too little, that's baloney too, because she ran for DA, she ran for Attorney General, she ran for United States Senator, and then she was a VP, and then she ran. I mean, how much of your life do you have to run for office before people say she should have experience running for office? She was the one who took radical stances, never explained it, didn't come out. She should have set herself up as a model for young women, and shame on her for not doing it.
Dana, you are a model for young women, and all women, I might add.
Especially the short ones.
Yes, short women need a mentor.
Yeah, we really, really do.
Yeah.